lot of people that know Jess. I haven't known Jess a long time, but the Jess I know is, she's one of those people who's committed to growing and learning. She has, the goals that they set every year are higher than the year before, and the numbers are just staggering. She's a leader, she's got a mother's heart, and she's got some amazing balance. It's just not all about real estate. It's just part. Real estate is just part of a greater thing.
Yes.
So with no further talk, let me introduce to you Jessica Starr.
All right, it's on. Good. Thanks. All right, I have all my stuff. Thanks everybody who hung in there and stayed till the end. I appreciate you guys being here. How great was Pam and James and David, huh? Awesome. It takes a lot to get up and talk in front of people, and it's very nerve-wracking. So the fact that they're willing to share and you have servant leaders in your real estate community, you need to reach out and thank them, because that's really kind for them to take the time and the day to do that for you guys. So I know it's my passion to try to give back to as many people as I can. And I think our industry really needs to focus on working well together no matter what company we're at. Because I feel that there's a lot of tension between people at times. And just like Pam and David, you know, be kind and have a servant's heart and do the right thing. And you'll go really far in this business. So what I'm talking to you guys today about is building a big business to fund a big life. How's that sound? Good? So raise your hand in here if any of you struggle just a little bit with your calendar. And I bet you there's probably a few more of you that could raise your hand, some 2 hands. So I'll give you a little background. I've been in business 14 years. I'll give you, I should have done a nice spreadsheet like Pam, but I didn't think about it. So, sorry. So anyways, I've been in business for 14 years. The first year I sold 2 crummy condos that were $140,000 a piece. Wasn't exactly rolling in it. I sold 11 houses a year after that, 11 houses after that, and then they started to double. In between, however, I've had 4 children. So I decided to take 6 months off with each child I had. Now that was great, and I was able to do it, which was wonderful. And, you know, I was at Prudential for 7 years, which is Berkshire Hathaway now. Switched to Keller Williams, and I switched for one reason. One, it was my calendar. I had no idea what I was doing. I was so busy. I left as their top agent, and I was running like a maniac. Who does that right now? Raise your hand if you're missing some of your kids' events, or maybe date night with your spouse. If my team members raise their hand, they're going to get in big trouble. So maybe you're missing events with your friends, right? Or you're missing those doctor's appointments you should probably keep up on, and the personal care and self-love that you should probably participate in, right? I had all of that happen, and I started losing friendships, and I started losing relationships, and relationships to me are everything. So when I made the switch, it was really because they showed me the one tool that I saw could change my life, and that was time blocking. So, just like Dave said before, you gotta plan your big rocks in this time blocking thing, right? Seems so rudimentary, none of us wanna do it. I know I met with a friend of mine the other day, and literally went over the same thing because I saw his business was outstanding last year, and I know he runs like a dog. So I've been there and chose to help because he's also getting married, and I thought, you know what, I don't want that person to experience what I had to experience, and I didn't want my outcome to be like the makeup of a lot of my fellow agents at my former company because I married my high school sweetheart. So that was real important to me. So this time blocking thing. What if you could set yourself a schedule so you treated this work that we do that's so important like a job? You know, at night you get in 8, 9 o'clock, you work till 4 or 5, right? Who does that right now? Raise your hand. All right, so there's like 5 of you. Great. And Josh. So he works for me. So anyway, so a couple things with that. A lot of us are too scared to control our calendar because we're scared that, hey, if I don't respond to them right now, they're going to go on and move to the next person, right? They're going to call that next agent who's going to be willing to just jump in the car and go meet them, which is, by the way, a safety issue, one. And second, it's also an issue because you haven't pre-qualified that person. You're trying to show them value in you because you'll show up. Who finds value in a car salesman because they walk up to you? Anyone? No, but they're willing to walk up to you, so that's great, right? Would you find it more valuable if you said, you know what, I'm so sorry, I'm unavailable that time, I'm already booked. Now, they don't need to know that you might be taking your daughter to dance class every Tuesday at 4, right? But I'm unavailable between 4 and 8, and all my clients know that. Anybody else do that? Unavailable certain times? Because you need to do that in order to have peace of mind. So, setting the expectation from that initial consultation on, whether it's a buyer agent, whether it's a listing agent, or you do everything, fine, because it takes all kinds, right? You set that expectation right away, and you're gonna have an enormous change in your life. So, I think it's being strong enough and willing enough to know the dialogue you need to speak to them to do that. So, how many of you work on the weekends? Right? I typically don't. So, I have a team, I created a team for that reason. They do, and they have days off on the weekends too, because I don't want people working 24/7 either. I want them to be able to have a life as well. So it makes a big difference. So what if you came in, and let's say the first thing you did in the morning between 8 and 10 or 8 and 11 was lead generate. Does anybody do that now? I know KW agents, yeah, there's a few good ones in here that they hit the phones all the time, which is good. And hitting the phones is lead generation, participating in PTO events, doing Facebook sponsored ads, and communicating and lead follow-up, that all counts. So what if you got super strategic on how you lead generated and do whatever you're passionate about? It doesn't have to be picking up the phone and calling expireds and FSBOs, but typically my day involves calling expireds and FSBOs between 8 and 10 a.m., right? Then between 10 and 11 a.m., I'm gonna do lead follow-up. And there's coaching that goes along with it. Just like Dave said, he has coaching for his team. We have our team huddle every Monday at 9:15. We have our team meeting at 9:30 every Wednesday. Just getting very purposeful. How many listing or buyer appointments do you have set in your calendar right now? Anybody, can you answer me and tell me exactly what you have set in your calendar every week? Available? John?
Oh, I can answer.
Yeah, answer me.
Every one of my days are scheduled in my Google Calendar. I have 3 listing appointments scheduled, and signing a contract today at 3:30 in my office.
So you know that just because of how you've set up your calendar, you have 3 available appointments every single day, so that would be 15 appointments a week, right? That you could potentially have. Now, do you keep all of those 15 appointments every week?
Try to.
Yeah, try to, but you probably don't have all of them full. However, you know that you can tell somebody that when you're talking to them, right? So you can say, I'm sorry, would a day or evening work better for you? And they say, oh, day, great. I've got 1 o'clock on Wednesday, or would 3 o'clock on Thursday be better for you? Because those are times you have available. How easy is that? Just like a doctor's office, and when you become the authority of what you do and how you do it, you're able to control it. So remember I told you I sold those 2 crappy deals the first year? When I came to KW, here's another thing. My business went up 114% that first year. Pretty big deal. I did over 40-something transactions when I left Prue. The big deal about it, though, my husband had an accident 6 months after I started working at KW. So for some of you that know me, you would know about this. He fell 16 feet out of a firehouse ceiling and broke his back. Anybody else have a big tragedy or something happen to them? Sam Bell, yep. So things throw us off, right? And if we're not scheduled, or we're not regimented with what our commitment is to our family and ourselves, that easily could make us broke. Anybody experience that? I'm sure. It's tough. It hits you between the eyes. So this is why I say this is so important, and I'm so passionate about it. Happy to help any one of you, too. If you're interested in it, feel free to reach out to me anytime, and I'll help you, show you what I do. I'll send you a copy of my calendar, and you can literally see what I do. But it literally saved our life, because the day before his accident, I found out I was pregnant with our 3rd. So a lot of stuff all at once. And remember how I said our business went up 114%? Well, 2016, we sold just shy of 45 million in sales and 191 units. I did 70 of them myself. I also took more vacation than I've ever taken, because my motto is to work between vacations. Right? Who doesn't like that? It's all about building memories with your family, with the people you work with, and encouraging them to do the same. Last year, it happens, we had some team turnover, which was tough, and because I'm such a relationship person, I wallowed, and I had done the majority of the listings on the team, literally wallowed for 3 months. I looked at Josh and I was like, oh, I'm updating my appointment tracker here. It also happened to be in the middle of spring market. And I'm like, can't find my appointments. Where are those? Look everywhere, can't find them, and realize I did 3 listing appointments in 3 months. Because I was like, I don't break up with people, so it was very hard for me. We have a great new team. We're already crushing our numbers this year. And I'm super proud because somebody that I helped come to KW actually beat us. We've been the #1 team at KW for the last 7 years. Dave Brook is #2, and we fell to #3. And he deserved it because he crushed it. And he followed the systems, which was awesome with the time blocking. He had more time with his family and friends, huge. So really follow these systems. Put your days off in your calendar. How often do you tell your clients you have a day off? And what day it is? How many of you tell not only your clients, but the people you're co-broking with, hey, just so you know, I'm unavailable between 4 and 8 p.m. You know what? Once you start saying it to people and they get it enough, they'll go, that's why I can't get you. That's why I was frustrated. You know what? That was my mistake because I didn't set the expectation. No problem, Jess. I'll call you after 8. I know your mom. Right? So those things are so super important for anybody forming a family that has grandkids. This job will eat you alive if you do not watch it. Right? Anybody ever felt like that? Mm-hmm. I know I did. Sorry if I'm being too deep, you all. Your energy's here. I need you up here a little bit. So, here's the thing. So, sorry some of this is KW stuff because this is a mixed room, I know, but it's so helpful so you know some of the systems that we use. One of the things we have is, we're practicing our one thing. Our one thing is lead generation. So I build a bunker around my lead gen time. I have assistants that will help, deter some of my team members if they just have one got-a-minute question, because it's never a minute. And there's time in the day that, like, hey, we can talk about this, but right now, if I don't lead generate, my family's not eating and neither is yours. So do you think your 1 minute is worth it, or do you want me to get a new listing so that we can get 3 to 4 new buyers? So they get it when that happens too. So you got to build a bunker, have snacks, build a bunker around your time so that, and schedule in breaks in that as well, so that you know what you're doing when you're doing it. When you're lead genning, who are you calling? You're going to call your past clients, you're going to call expireds and FSBOs, Facebook people, make a plan. So even in your calendar, you write lead gen expireds, lead gen Facebook leads, lead gen, whatever it is, but it's in there, and make it a non-negotiable. So one of the things I said, I actually talked to Camille, who's an outstanding agent at our company, and did like 80 transactions himself without an assistant last year. That's why we went to lunch. So I'm like, oh honey, I gotta help you. So one of the things, I had said is you can do the same thing. Put those listing appointments, those buyer appointments in there so you know what to expect, when to expect it, and your days off, and put in your date night. Who has date night standing in their calendar? Oh, I'm proud of the 7 of you that raised your hands. That's amazing. So our relationships are the most important, and just like Dave said, when you're like, oh, hon, I don't have any time right now, but let me just get this, do you mind? The kids start noticing that too. And so then you've told them they're not a priority. So if you say you're unavailable, put that phone in the kitchen and do not touch it until it's after the time you said. That's one of the tricks that I have too. Also, who schedules their vacations a year out for the entire year? Good. You should absolutely do that. So what if you scheduled your vacation and had it paid a year out too? How awesome would that be? So you can build those memories. Life is too short. I took a great class called Quantum Leap, and somebody drew a line on the board, right? And they had said, oh, it's time to go.
I don't know what that was. I'm calling the police. I didn't call you.
So they had drawn the line on the board, and they said, okay, we're in a room with, mixed bag of people here. How many of you think you're at the beginning? How many of you think you're at the end or somewhere in the middle? And, some of the older people in the crowd were like, I'm more to the end. Some of the ones in the middle were like, I'm just starting out. And I raised my hand, and I said, well, I could be at the end. And I'm 38. But my husband had that accident, right? We were just fortunate he made it. So you never know what could happen. So live your day like that. Treat your relationships like that. And you'll have a very successful and happy life. We don't take that into perspective because we're just going about our day, right? Who thinks like that typically? Not a ton. It's a great way to live, and sometimes when you go through things, you're afforded perspective that nobody else is able to have. That makes sense. I'm kind of an old lady trapped in a 38-year-old. So, who's heard of this? This is my favorite thing. Focusing on your big rocks, right? So, you'll notice a glass vessel on the side. This represents your weekly schedule. This is your open blank calendar. So just visualize your calendar right now. Your big rocks represent large important tasks. What could those things be? Let's raise our hands.
Lead generation.
Lead generation, what's another one?
Time with family.
Time with family, listings. So that's not really it. The big rocks are your family. The big rocks are your health. The big rocks are your spirituality. The big rocks are your financial plans. Those are your big rocks. Those are all like the glass balls you juggle. There's 5 of them. And if one of those happen to fall, the glass balls shatter, right? So you can't let those big rocks shatter. So what if you took your calendar that you're visualizing and you visualize Sunday, like Dave Brooke, I have off and I'm at church for an hour or 2 hours because that's your thing. That's what fills your tank, right? For me, it would be making breakfast with my kids, taking them to a movie and going for a walk, you know, those kinds of things on Sunday too. So you have Sunday entirely off. Picture that, picture your kids. How many of you have your health scheduled in there? Josh, great. And so like it looks like a lot of us could use some help with that. I know I'm working on it. So putting in that calendar, all right, this is when I intend to work out. Holding yourself accountable to it. Get a buddy that's gonna meet you so you can't disappoint them. You wanna hold yourself more accountable? Write that buddy a $1,000 check and tell them, if I don't meet you, you get to cash this. Is that accountability? Right? Do you really want to change? I think you'll change. If you want even more accountability, instead of saying, you get to cash this, write that check to the competitor you like the least. And say, you get to mail this to her or him. Right? Doesn't that suck? That literally hurts. I'm like, oh, I can picture him. So, anyways, but that's a high level of accountability if you want to make a change in your life. So you do that for your health. What do you have set? You know, I know Thursdays I try to take time off to get my nails done or get my hair done or go make my doctor's appointments. What if you kept every Thursday morning that you're able to do that? Or you're able to sleep in, like Camille needed a day to sleep in. So we looked at his calendar and said, okay, Friday you're gonna be unavailable until this time because you get to sleep in, take care of yourself, do what you're gonna do, because we run like dogs. Even if that means you're meal prepping for the week, right? So any of this helpful for you guys? All right, good. So the little rocks represent many little important tasks, right? What little important tasks are there? Lead gen is important because that helps build your business. Listing appointments, they're important. Negotiating contract and lead follow-up, just like Dave said. We have 5 jobs as agents, right? Lead gen, lead follow-up, negotiate contracts. Attending a closing and attending a home inspection is actually not our job. You can leverage that out. So a lot of us don't think to do it because it's going to cost money or it's going to cost time. But once you realize what you're worth an hour, you're able to do 70 units and you're able to encourage your team to do 191. So there's nothing different I did other than master my calendar and hire people to help hold me accountable to it. So kind of a great thing. So the SAN represents many small urgent tasks. So SAN is email. SAN is voicemail, SAN is Facebook, right? Email's important, yet negotiating contract's more important, right? So that can probably go into the little rocks and that should be time blocked. So you can tell your clients, hey look, I'm unavailable between 9 and 11, I'm prospecting to try to find the buyer for your house. Our team sells 38% of our own listings, is that okay with you? Nobody usually argues. And I say, hey, if you need me right then and it's urgent, I've got an amazing listing coordinator, transaction coordinator, whatever you need, they'll be right there. I'll return calls between 12 and 1 and 5 and 6. Does that sound like a standard? What standards do you guys have in your life and in your business? Any of you have them? My standard is I answer the phone as fast as I can, I get in my car and I show them the house, right? So, makes a big difference. So, building a big business and a life by design. You'll also notice if any of you guys are friends with me on Facebook, like I said, I like to work between vacations. My team knows I need like 4 or 5 days off every 8 to 10 weeks. Usually 10 is too long because I'll get sick. So I know this and I know the patterns about my body. I know I get the flu and I fall like an ox and I'm down for 2 weeks plus. So that's not worth it. For me to take 5 days is actually better because I know I'll be back, re-energized and ready to go. And who gets busy before they go away? Right? Like, you're crazy busy. You're like, where did these people come from? They've been like sleepers. So, anyway, so my big why, just like Pam was talking about, and we stressed that at KW too, is all about my family, building my life by design, creating memories for people that are in my life, and that's my team as well. My team is my family. So everything we do it together, we succeed together, we earn together. So the nice thing is, just like Pam was saying, giving back to people, being the resource in your community, sometimes that includes hosting a blood drive like Sam Bell did, doing a TSA pre-check event like we did, having client appreciation events that we do. So these are all things that people know, love, and want to come see you. Now people ask us to donate. So we donate a heck of a lot. These are our team pictures, and that's my Christmas Eve table at my house. That's how many people I host for Christmas Eve. So pretty special. So this is types of lead gen that you can do. So the nice thing is lead generation, 36 closed transactions in 12 months with 3 hours a day of lead gen. That's what you can expect. So that's the point of the 3 hour a day lead gen. You can expect 36 transactions, I'll say it again, within 1 year if you commit to 3 hours of lead gen a day. And it's just consistency over time, that's all it is. You think Pam was consistent when she went to all those events? You think David's consistent when he's hosting his training for his team? That's the difference. There's no difference between us and you, it's only consistency. So, hang on. You guys ready if I talk a little money and business here? Also very passionate about this. So there is a large number, and I should have gotten the stat for you, of agents that are actually broke. And they might look like they drive really nice cars, and they might dress really nice. Don't fall into that trap. Don't look at what somebody else is doing. Don't look at Facebook, because a lot of people are faking it till they make it. You don't want to do that. You just be yourself, beat your own numbers, care about that more, and you won't have to worry about competing with anybody else. Also, pay your quarterlies. Who doesn't pay quarterlies here? Probably a good chunk of you that are willing. Thank you for being honest.
This year is the first year.
Listen,
Yeah,
I
this
had a
year's the
couple
first year
years
for me, too.
that I had not paid quarterlies. Here's a great, terrible example for myself. So I had always saved, been really good at saving. Josh, my director of operations, started working for me a week before my dad died. Sucks for him and me. So almost to the end of the year, he comes in, his face is a little white, he looks a little sweaty, and he's like, I gotta talk to you. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? He goes, so, don't think your payroll company's been taking taxes out all year? I'm like, oh, that sounds great. No. So I'm like, okay. He goes, and you could fire me and still not have enough? And I'm like, well, that's not an option. So we're gonna figure out how we need to do it. But how terrifying is that? And Josh gets paid handsomely, so that was, a little scary. Also, the year we had $45 million in sales, and I didn't make any more money because I paid taxes twice that year, right? The year after my dad died. Not what you expect, but if you're smart enough and you save your money, you're also able to take care of things when you need to, right? So I'm just saying, don't fall into those traps because it's a little scary. And you also don't want people fearing for their own jobs either, because that's not a great thing. So anyways, money in business. The greatest investment in money is when money and time are invested into people. Pour into, train, educate, and pay people what they're worth. The results will follow. How many of you agonize over hiring an assistant? Raise your hand. Right? There's only a few of you that stress about that or even think about it. There's got to be more of you. So, or you say to yourself, I can do it. Why do I need an assistant? I'm great at this. They'll be, I don't want to spend the money. Good people are worth paying. That's always my philosophy. They will be your partner, your ally, and your advocate in everything you do. So think about hiring the right people and how much that could help you. If I hire this person, my return on investment should be 3 times their salary, right? Who knows those stats? Like, that's really what it should be. And if it's not 3 times their salary, well, then maybe they're not the right person. So just something to think about. Do not live over your means. Invest your money. Invest money back into the business to grow the business. How many people have a really great year so they go buy themselves a brand new car? None of you? I don't believe you at all. You're big liars. So nobody's bought a brand new car. Yeah, I'm not believing it. So, and sometimes it's like, hey, you want to keep up with whoever and get the car, or somebody has a Mercedes or a BMW, and That's like the realtor trick. So, and anybody can lease anything, I'm here to tell you too. So when you see them driving that, doesn't mean they own it. So, I think it's very important to keep your eye on the prize. If you're smarter and you reinvest your money back into your business, as opposed to the shiny things, you'll see that business grow. Gary Keller drove a crappy 1980-something car, and he's this big CEO of a company, and everybody's like, Gary, you gotta get a better car. And he's like, why? It's paid off, I don't have to worry about it. He's like, you make like a multi-millionaire, what the heck? Probably billionaire. So, but there's a reason that he did it. So it makes sense when you think of it that way, and he's not keeping up with anybody. See, when if somebody's gonna hire you because of the car you drive, I gotta be honest with you, I don't need to work with that person, right? That's just not how I am, and maybe somebody else is like that, and you're welcome to have them. But I have plenty of other people that deserve my service too. So, try to live off of 50 to 75% of what you make. The average American lives off of 110% of what they make. That is why we have such a debt crisis in our country, because people live above their means, right? So you can't pay it off. You take these classes to try to help you get back in the game, and then it's an evil cycle because you need to go buy something. So what if you decide to go on a debt diet? Who's willing to do that? All of us could do it. I could do it, right? You're like, how much did I make last year? Where did that go? So, vacations. So, but anyway, so that's really important. So, pay yourself first. Always have 3 to 6 months of personal and business savings set aside for the what ifs in life. Another what if that happened to me was, thank you. Another thing that happened while I was doing business was my father got really sick, and he was my person. And he had a surgery going wrong at a hospital here, and had to get flown to the Cleveland Clinic to have surgery there. It was months and months of pain and headaches, and eventually he couldn't get the surgery there. My dad did all the money stuff. My dad took care of my mom. She took care of him in other ways. So I stepped in and did everything I could to help them financially, time-wise, everything. So thankfully I did have those reserves, because that year after I had the fun tax issue. So, but it was scary, because if you don't have 3 to 6 months of reserves, personal and business, my husband's accident could have changed our life entirely, and we could not live or do what we're doing right now. My dad's illness could have too. My team fired me when my dad was sick. Whose team has let them go? Anybody? Right. So they let me go. Obviously, it's still my team, so I'm gonna come back. But they let me go because A, they're wonderful people, but B, they saw that I wasn't even making sense on emails and texts. I was not mentally present for what needed to happen. And because they knew I would have done it for them, they did it for me. So I also was not willing to let our business go down. So as my dad slept in the hospital, I would call expired listings. Who does that? Who's willing to go that extra mile to still take care of your team? You want to know why I call expired? Does anybody know?
Keep your mind off of it.
Nobody would ask me how I was doing, how my dad was. So that's the one time I let my database down, because nobody would ask. So it was easier. So if you are doing something, all I'm suggesting to you is think of a different way. If you're going through something and this is too hard to do, there's another way. You just have to find that other way. Remember, I think it was James that was talking about all the fish at the beginning of the opening? Go be the fish that swims downstream. Who does that? Not a lot of us. There's 1%, right? So your environment at home and your environment at work need to support your goals, financially, personally, and mentally. If you have a significant other, you need to get on the same page about all of the above to create the optimal work-life counterbalance. Nothing is ever perfectly balanced. That's the bad news, right? It's all a counterbalance on what you're going to do. So when we have our date night set, and we go out on dates a lot because I love him. So we have our date night set. 2 times a month, we'll talk about personal finances and like, hey, where are we at? We have these investment properties and we've saved this much, or we got to pay this off, or whatever it is. But touch base. Too many people don't talk about money, and be willing to touch base and talk about money with your children. Who talks about money with their kids? Some, not all, right? And it's a very taboo subject, just like weight, right? Ugh, the bane of my existence. So not all of us talk about those things. So if you're willing to be a vulnerable, humble, and servant leader to both your family and to your teams and the people that you work with, and teams could not necessarily be like all my buyer's agents and listing agents. It could be your attorney, your mortgage person. Sometimes you need to ask them for help too. We all go through stuff and we work in this business together. Be willing to also say that to the agents you're co-broking with. Because when you're treating them like garbage, because, well, you feel like garbage because of what you're going through, is that fair to them? I had an agent doing it to me one time, and she's like, listen, Jess, I sell 25 houses a year and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, great. I never say anything otherwise. And she kept going. And finally I said, I think you're having a bad day, and this feels a little more about your ego than the client. So I'd like to know. She goes, well, I don't think you know who you're dealing with.
Oh, God.
And I was like, okay, that's fair. And so let's get to the point with the client and whatnot. In the end, I said, listen, because she just wouldn't shut up about these stupid 25 deals. I was like, I closed 17 last month. Can we move on? Like, that's great. And then she goes, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, so you are dealing with somebody that knows what they're doing. What's going on with you? And she started to cry. And she goes, my mom's sick. You don't know what people are going through, so come from curiosity, come from contribution, and try to help. That's the biggest thing that we can learn to work well together in our industry. Create a balance and net worth sheet of what you currently have personally. Anybody have that? Pam, good, I have one person. I'm sure Pam's husband, I got two. Class kids, good job, I got 4 more. All right, so does anybody know what a balanced net worth sheet is? Pam?
Well, we just have a list of everything, so
Yeah.
I don't know if it's actually this network sheet you're talking about, but.
Pretty close. So basically, if you own multiple properties, you have what you owe on it, what the value is, what your net worth is on that property. If it's multiple, list them out. What you have in your investments for retirement. Who has retirement plans here? We need retirement plans because we don't have those benefits, right? If you're not thinking about it, it's time to start. And it's never too late to start. No matter if you're 65 and you haven't started, start now. The day to start is now. So, and take massive action on doing it. It's huge. But keep a net worth sheet. You know your debt, you know those kinds of things too. So you can keep going and see measurable goals. As soon as you start doing the calendar stuff, and you can see the measurable goal of, hey, now my wife and I, or now my husband and I have a date night every week or every other week. Make it in the middle of the week too, because you'll always get a babysitter in the middle of the week, and then you're not going to tick a friend off because you can't make their event on the weekend, and you'll always get a reservation, right? Plus, it takes off the stress of being a parent, just one night a week, which is kind of awesome. So then build a 5-year plan on where you want to take your personal and professional life on all levels. Create a written wealth plan to be your guide. Anybody do that? No wealth plan, right? We just work day in and day out. We're not really sure why, but we want to make more money. We know that, right? And we probably want to take some vacations, but where are we going to go? When are we going to go? Have we planned any of that? So I encourage you all to create a wealth plan, to create your net worth sheet. Even if your net worth is like negative, create that. Because you know what? Once you're not negative $25,000 and you're at 0, you're going to feel pretty darn good. You eat it inch by inch when you're going to eat an elephant, right? And that's a pretty big goal. So I would just love to see our community be people that have money. Because when people don't have money and they're negotiating a deal, they tend to be a real jerk when they think it's going to fall apart. I'm not, because I've got 25 other ones pending, right? So you can get there too. So wealth is a state of mind. Success is a result of a very specific attitude and thoughts towards wealth. The purpose of business is to fund the perfect life, and the purpose of life is to truly live before we die. What are you doing today to build that perfect life? So I think this kind of wraps everybody into this. Master relationships with people, and the money will follow. You are the sum total of the 5 people you are closest to in terms of your financial status. Love, career, physical, personal, and spiritual well-being. Those are your 5 rocks. Those are what you time block in. If it's a girls' weekend every 2 months, you time block that in. Look at your calendar the year ahead of time and do it. Pick your mentors and role models wisely. Is it time to top grade your inner circle? Your wealth is indicative of the 5 people you're closest to. So think about the friends you have. Think about the people you relate with at work, at church. It makes a big difference. Who inspires you in these areas? I encourage you to reevaluate your mentors and choose people you'd like to emulate in each of the 6 categories above. You do the work now for the payout that comes later. Too many of us would like a payout now because, well, that seems a lot nicer, right? And we're not willing to put the time in. They say it takes 10 years to make an overnight success. I've sold homes for 14 years, and I've helped and trained multiple agents for the last 8. So that's a lot. So when it looks like an overnight success, and all these people just call Jess, or they just call Pam, or they just call Dave. Well, yeah, 10 years of an overnight success, that's what that looks like. So you saw the numbers, right? You saw Pam's numbers. She had nothing the first year, nothing. You can only go up from there. So that's a good
I
thing.
started in the fall.
Right? It's fine. I had 2. I started in like April. It's fine. Why shouldn't you be a millionaire? Money is good for the good it can do. How many people could you help, donate to, or inspire if you chose to live life and play full on? Is it time to build your life by design and not by default? What does playing full on mean to you? Creating that wealth plan, going back and looking at your calendar. You've got some amazing speakers here today. You've got a lot of action items that you could do. Your best bet is to take half an hour today, write down 3 action items, write no more. You can always go back to your notebook. Take 3 action items that you're gonna do and implement right away, and get one of them done today. Unless you take action within 24 hours, you're not gonna take action at all. And you'll have a very smart notebook and shelf. Does that make sense? So hang on, I have one last thing I'm gonna say to you guys, okay? I have to read it, so forgive me. Has any of this been helpful? Yeah? All right, so just like everybody said with needing to go that extra mile, there's a great little poem I'm gonna read to you. And it's called Scratchings from the Little Red Hen, all right? Said the big white rooster, gosh, all hemlock things are tough. Seems that worms are getting scarce and I cannot find enough. What's become of all those fat ones is a mystery to me. There were thousands through the rainy spell, but now where can they be? The little red hen who heard him didn't grumble or complain. She had gone through lots of dry spells. She had lived through floods and rain. So she flew up on the grindstone and she gave her claws a wet. And she said, I've never seen a time there were no worms to get. She picked a new and undug spot. The earth was hard and firm. The big white rooster jeered, new ground, that's no place for a worm. The little red hen spread her feet. She dug fast and free. I must go to the worms, she said. The worms won't come to me. Make sense to anybody here? The rooster vainly spent his day through habit by the ways where fat worms have passed in squads back in the rainy days. When nightfall found him supperless, he growled in accents rough. I'm hungry as a fowl can be, conditions sure are tough. How many agents did we hear say this? Watch for the downturn in the market, too. He turned to the little red hen and said, it's worse with you, for you're not only hungry, but you must be tired, too. I rested while I watched for worms, so I feel fairly pert, but how are you without worms, too? And after all that work? The little red hen hopped to her perch and dropped her eyes to sleep and murmured in a drowsy tone, young man, hear this and weep. I'm full of worms and happy, for I've dined both long and well. The worms were there as always, but I had to dig like hell. Here and there, white roosters are still holding sales positions. They cannot do much business now because of poor conditions. But as soon as things are right again, they'll sell 100 firms. Meanwhile, the little red hens are out gobbling up those worms. That's it.